Welcome to All Abilities Network Podcast. Now, here is your host, bilingual certified life coach, advocate, and the founder of All Abilities Network, Alvaro.
Hi and welcome to All Abilities Network Podcast. I am Alvaro and I'm very happy to be with you today. It's very exciting to have the guest we have. But before we go with her, she's excited too. So she's already saying hello. Look at that. But before we start with her, I want to say, like always, thank you to people listening. We have listeners in the United States, we have listeners in Canada, Australia, Latin America, Europe, Africa, Asia, all over the place. It's been over 14 years doing podcasting, doing interviews from people from all over this planet Earth. And I remember I did an interview with someone from Ohio. I want to give a big shout out to her if she's listening. Her name is Sammy Stoner. She was the first legally blind high schooler running cross country, and she has been on ESPN, and very inspirational story, Sammy. And I did that interview. I think it was like in 2012 or something like that. And I have not done many interviews about running. I do not know why, to be honest with you, because the subject is interesting, and it is for our blind community for sure. But I'm here with Amanda Bonham. She is a blind woman from Tennessee in the United States. She has a lot to tell us, especially about the Boston Marathon she ran recently. And first, Amanda, I want to say thank you for saying yes to this interview. I know how busy you are. You are a mother, you are a wife, you do it all. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
All right, so let's get into things. First of all, what's the cause of your blindness?
I have a disease called Stargardt's, and I was diagnosed around age 9 with this disease. It's a degenerative retina disease, kind of like early onset macular degeneration.
Oh, yeah. I know the type for our listeners. I have many friends with the Stargardt's. I have RP. Mm-hmm. So they say it's the contrary of RP. Because
it's exactly the opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what it is, Amanda? They say that people with Stargardt's never lose their sight completely, and people with RP, we do. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
I don't know yet. I think there's a lot they don't know about this disease, to be honest with you. I think they're just now starting to really get a broad spectrum of people with it to study. And I've noticed in the groups that I'm in, there is a huge difference in vision loss. Based on when it first presents in the person, I know like the earlier you get diagnosed, usually the more loss you have. And so I'm one of the more significant sight loss cases of Stargardt. So I have a considerable amount of vision loss from my disease, whereas I know some people who have limited driver's license with this disease, which I've never been able to drive a car. So, I think it's all over the place. I don't have any central vision left at all. I do have some peripheral, but I have noticed that the blind spot has gone into my periphery. My eye doctors have noticed that there has been some change in my peripheral vision too. So I think it's a big question mark. Honestly, I hope I don't lose it all, but at this point, I feel like all bets are off on this one. I don't know.
Right. No. Yeah, we hope you don't. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
All right. So people are thinking, okay, because we don't touch the subject of running so much, you'll have to educate us tonight, I have to say, Amanda. Mm-hmm. So first, let's start from the beginning. When do you say I'm into fitness. I want to run.
It was, it was the scariest thing to me, running. I never wanted to do it, even when I started getting into fitness when I was in my mid-30s in San Diego. I started, doing CrossFit, lifting weights, powerlifting, stuff like that. And the people in the gym would sometimes run for warm-ups, and I would never do it because I was terrified of falling. I was like, I can't run. I'm not going to run. I'll just get on the rowing machine and warm up that way. I didn't want to run. And even when I was younger, I was just not very athletic, and I think just that fear of falling always held me back from running or trying to do anything with speed outside. Like walking was no big deal, but to run just seemed like far too risky and reckless, and I just didn't want to do it. But I had a friend of mine who's a blind runner in Las Vegas. Her name's Terry Rupp. I know a lot of people know her in the blind community, but I knew she was running, and I would see her post on Facebook about all this running she was doing. I'm like, how does she do this? I know she sees God as well as I do, and she's out here running. Like, how do you do it? So I started asking her, tell me how you do this, because this is crazy to me that you can go and run all these miles. So she kind of explained to me how you do sighted guide with a tether, and you go out and run with somebody who helps guide you. And I was like, that is kind of awesome and kind of terrifying, and I want to try it. So I managed to talk somebody in to trying it out with me at my CrossFit gym. There were a couple of runners in the class, and I just asked one day, would anybody want to give this a go with me just to see how it is? And I started to fall in love with it little by little.
So for our listeners, Amanda, how does this work? I'm trying to see the picture. So someone is with you. How are you connected, so to speak? How does it go?
Well, I now have a fancy, real pro running tether, but in the beginning, I didn't know about these fancy tethers. I just made do with whatever I could. I've used a yoga mat strap. I've used a dog leash. I've used a shoestring. You find some kind of this tether, and it can be any kind of string that the sighted person holds and you hold. And it's kind of like working a guide dog, if you've ever worked a guide dog. So I like to keep my guide runner on the left, just like I always kept my guide dog. That's just how I do it. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule here. They don't have to be on my left, but that's just where I want them to be, I think, because of having had a guide dog. And so I let them run to my left, and they're usually just a little bit in front of me.
Okay.
And so the guide runner needs to be as fast as you are, if not a little bit faster. But they want to follow my lead, so they're never pulling me. They're following my pace, but they're just slightly up and to the left, just like a guide dog usually. And they call out obstacles, they'll tell me what the terrain looks like. It's straight for the next, while.
Right.
Coming up on a hill in about 50 feet. We're going to do a pretty steep downhill. And, the more you work with somebody, the better they can give you feedback on what you're saying. The road is rough, pick up your toes. We're going to have a curb step up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 step. You kind of learn how to call out the terrain with certain verbal feedback.
And
in certain situations too, when you're both running really hard and it's getting hard to talk, I will have them just pull me left, push me right. If I need to move over, if we're going to pass somebody, if it gets harder to talk.
Right.
I've had some pulls too can be used, but we try to stick to verbal. But it can get rough out there when you're getting tired and running hard.
I bet
that's how it works. Yeah,
okay.
I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
It's like if a guide dog could talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Amanda, there may be people asking, okay, we're going to go deep into everything related to running, but Amanda makes a living out of running? Is a hobby? Do you have other income sources?
It's just for fun. It's just a hobby for me.
Okay.
Although I guess I did win some prize money in Boston. I don't know how much, but
oh, you did. Okay.
You can compete in the para division and win some money in the majors.
Okay.
But not all races have prize money, especially not for adaptive athletes. But it's mostly just it's for fun. It's for my fitness and well-being.
Right. Okay, so I'm trying to go step by step in the process of becoming a runner. If someone is listening right now and says, I want to become one. So the first step, Amanda, I would think, is to get in shape, right?
No. I mean, I think the first step is to just want to do it. You got to want to do it, and you have to commit to a schedule. Consistency is critical for becoming a runner. You got to be consistent and dedicated. And then you don't have to be in good shape to start running. You start by walking, and then you run intervals. You just run for like maybe 10, 15 seconds, and then you walk some more, and then 10, 15 seconds. And eventually you push it to 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And next thing you know, you're running for 5 minutes unbroken. And then you take a walk break, and that's how you build as a runner. You do a lot of walk, run in the beginning to build a base.
Okay, yeah. You have a good point. First, you got to say, I want to do this, and it's going to require a commitment, discipline, and all of that. Okay, next, I suppose you need a special diet?
Well, that depends on your goals, and it depends on how much you're running. If you're just a casual runner and you're doing like maybe 5Ks here and there, your diet can just be what it is. There's no need to mess around with it. Just eat normally, eat what feels right to you. When you get into the marathon distance and marathon training, I feel like that's when food really became an issue for me, where I had to focus on it to be able to perform. Only because you're accumulating so much volume during a week of training, running, and then the long runs in particular are super demanding on your body, and recovery fuel as well as, fuel for the run. It all plays a huge role when you get to that level. And then you've got to fuel while you're running too. So that's when it becomes an issue. I feel like if you're just playing around as a recreational casual runner, anything under like, say, 8 miles, I don't think you have to worry too much about fueling and food. Just eat a balanced diet and you should be fine. And remember to hydrate. Those are the most important things for the shorter distances.
Right. Now, in your case, when did you say, I think I am able to run a marathon? I'm willing, but I can make it happen. I really can.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? When I started running, I was just like, I'm not a runner. This is just fun. I'll never do more than a 5K. I'm a 5K runner. I just want to be able to get out and run 5K, and that's the end of that for me. And that's what I said for years. And the first 5K I ran, the first race I ever did was in Las Vegas on Thanksgiving with my friend Terry. It was kind of fun to do my first real race. And I had no time goal. I had no expectation. I just wanted the experience.
Right.
And it was so much fun. But the guide that I had there, she was an Ironman lady. Like, she was really into all the running and racing and stuff. She's like, oh, you're so good at this. You should do a half marathon. You should do a 10K. And I'm like, girl, I'm never doing more than a 5K. I only run 5K. And that was after I had my first baby. Then I had my second baby. During my second pregnancy, I did a lot of running for fitness. And then during postpartum recovery after I had him, running became more a part of my routine than it ever had been before. I was always more of a weightlifter than I was a runner, but it started to shift after that second baby, and I think it's because I liked the alone time I got running. So I just kept running a little longer, and I was like, man, the longer I'm out here, I do another mile, that's a whole nother like 10, 12 minutes by myself. So it just snuck up on me, and the next thing I knew, I ran like 10 miles. I remember the first day I ran for 10 miles, and I just stopped and was like, 10 miles? How on earth am I running 10 miles? I never, ever thought that I could go from 3 miles to 10 miles. And it just sort of gradually, unintentionally, little by little, turned into 10 miles. And when that happened, I started to think, 10 miles is only 3 miles from a half marathon distance. I bet I could run a half marathon. So I just started playing around with distance. I didn't get too serious about training. I just kind of, each time it was time for my long run, I do one long run a week, I would go a little bit further, maybe 10 and a half, now 11 miles. Now let's try 11 and a half miles. And then the next thing I knew, I hit a half marathon distance. And when I did that, Terry found out about it, and she's just like, why don't you do a marathon? And I was like, maybe I could, because that was when I started to think, all you have to do is just keep adding a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and so she talked me into it, and yeah, that's kind of how it started. It was sort of an accident. I didn't really set out thinking like I want to run a marathon. I'm going to be a distance runner. It just sort of organically happened, and it felt very natural, and it felt very, possible. I think because I didn't have any pressure on myself to do it, it just sort of turned into something for me. But once I realized, hey, I can run 13 miles, then I can run 14, and then I can run 15, and then I can run 16, and so on. So, yeah, that's how that happened.
And Amanda, how many miles is a marathon?
It is 26.2.
26 is 42 kilometers?
I think 42.3 kilometers, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't know.
Yes.
It sounds a lot, Amanda, I mean, yeah. I wonder what kind of diet, training daily, for how long gets you in shape to get to a marathon. I mean, we'll talk later about the mindset, which is extremely important for everything in life. Sure. But I want to go into that. When did you say, okay, my goal is the marathon in Boston is, 5 weeks from now, or a month or 2 months from now, so I need to stop eating pizza and stop eating burgers, and I have to, you know what I mean? So how it happened?
Well, a marathon training block is usually 16 to 18 weeks long.
Oh, wow.
And the fun thing about marathon training is you do not say no to pizza or burgers. You
really?
actually say yes to carbs and pasta. They're your friends if you want to eat carbs. So one of the things Terry and I talk about, we run for food. You have to up your caloric intake considerably when you're running distance, and your body needs to replenish glycogen supply, so you got to eat carbs.
Oh.
You want to try to be balanced, so you want to be healthy as much as you can. You don't want to just eat pizza. But, I mean, if you want to have pizza on Friday night and you want to have as much as you want, that's really no problem, because the next day you're going to get up and you're going to run 16 miles, and there goes your pizza,
Right.
So I don't really hold back too much on that. Now, I do make protein a priority in my diet. I make sure I get at least 120 grams of protein a day. It's kind of based on your body weight. So everybody's protein intake is going to vary based on how big they are and, how old they are and stuff like that. But I've calculated out that's the, baseline protein I need to take in every day, whether I train or not train. Every day I need that just for muscle maintenance. And I started doing protein calculations when I was just weightlifting and doing CrossFit and stuff like that, because protein is, I think, the most important part of a fitness diet. And then after that, it sort of depends on if you're more cardio-based or not. And if you're cardio-based, then you need to look at your carbs. And so carbs become extremely important in your diet when you're a runner, especially if you're like a distance runner. So I like to make sure I eat a lot of fruit, like bananas, pears. I love watermelon in the summer, a lot of fruits, because they have a sugar content, but they also have a lot of hydration in them. So water is really important. Salt intake, you got to keep your electrolytes up. So I don't shy away from salt either. And so you want to make sure you have enough salt in your diet.
Okay, Amanda, how was a breakfast for you during those days of training? Tell us.
Okay, for breakfast can be a little tricky. So, like, when I run in the mornings, I am one of those runners who, and there's a big debate on this, and it's very much a personal preference thing, but I don't like to run with a lot in my stomach. It makes me feel yucky.
Okay.
And so gastrointestinal problems is something some runners find that they have. Like, they easily get sick when they run, or have diarrhea or vomiting.
Yeah.
And that's something you just have to learn what works for you. And that's why you train, is so that you can learn your body. And so I've learned that I can have a banana and maybe some peanut butter or a cracker and peanut butter, something kind of light and easy in the mornings before a run. I always have a little something, but nothing too big.
Okay.
And then I run, but after the run is when I make sure I get most of my fueling in, because that's when I don't worry about getting sick on a run. Yes, I'm done running. Now I can eat. And so that's usually how that works for me.
And so what was your
light
lunch?
breakfast?
Your lunch after
my lunch
running? Yeah.
I mean, just as a random example, I like to do like a can of tuna fish with some, like make a tuna fish wrap on a low carb wrap with some lettuce, tomato, and cheese.
Okay.
But it's, I usually try to get about 30 grams of protein in for my lunch. A protein shake, chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk after a run. And protein bars as snacks are really good to get extra protein in. I love Greek yogurt with peanut butter powder and honey.
That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, cottage cheese and avocado. I like that too.
Okay.
Another high protein. My kid is. I'm sorry.
We are recording. I mean, she's a mother, so come on. It's perfectly all right for our listeners. And the baby wants to say hello and hello to as well. But
this is mom life, and then
and that's the beauty of doing this. Yeah. Amanda, well, if you gotta go with help and then come back, I.
Oh no, we're good. He's just
okay.
needing a little help from me again.
Okay. No problem.
We've been finished up potty training, so he needs my attention when he's got to go.
Right. We understand.
Yes.
Now,
don't want any accidents.
No. You're right. But Amanda, so we talk about breakfast and lunch, and some people say at night you gotta be careful. What did you eat during dinner, or only a coffee, or only I don't know.
Dinner, again, I try to make sure I have a nice protein source. I like to eat beef, chicken, turkey,
okay.
pork. I'm a carnivore. I know some people aren't, but I definitely will eat the meat. And I usually have, probably 6 to 8 ounces of meat, depending on how my protein intake looks for the day, with a starch and a vegetable or two. I like to eat sweet potatoes. I like to eat rice. I like to eat egg noodles, pasta. And I like to eat green veggies like broccoli, green beans, peas. Beans are good, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about...
But a cheeseburger is totally on my menu. John, come on.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, usually if I know I'm doing a long run the next day, I will have a more carb-heavy dinner. Like, that's when I like to do the pizza,
okay.
Pasta, big Italian dinner. That's what I like to have the night before a long run.
Right. It makes sense. Now...
Chinese food, something yummy.
Right. Now, it's 18 weeks. That's a long time. So you need a lot of discipline. How do you work on that to be always disciplined about your goal?
I think a lot of people in the running community say you need to find your why. So you basically need to know, why do you want to run a marathon? Why does this matter to you? And for me, I feel like each race that I've trained for, there's usually a little bit of a different why, but there's always a foundational why, which is because I can. And I am grateful that I am able with my body to do this. There's not been a lot of happy moments with my body in my life until recently, and I think just with sight loss, I've had a lot of body issues, a lot of anger towards my body, and to finally find something that my body can do that makes me feel proud and happy, it motivates me to take advantage of that and to embrace that. So that is one of my whys, is to just find a new way of connecting with myself that is joyful. Another reason is it helps me clear my mind. It frees me of anxiety. It's sort of like, some people take antidepressants. I run. And so you can tell when I'm off my medicine because I am not the same person. I'm more irritable. I have a lot more anxiety. I don't sleep as well. So I find that running also is just like, if I'm not out there running, I know what's going to happen next. I'm going to feel bad. I'm not going to have a good day. I'm not going to be as patient with my kids. I'm going to have a lot more worry and fatigue. And so that helps motivate me too, as I know what happens when I don't run. So once you've established it as a habit, it's really easy to not break it anymore because you know the alternative is not going to be pleasant. And there are lots of days, especially during a marathon training cycle, because that's the whole point of marathon training, is to break you down and fatigue you to your limit. And there are plenty of days during a marathon training cycle where you're just like, I do not want to run today. I don't want to do this. And you're like, but you are going to do it. Because you have to stop and see that finish line in your future and just like, I'm going to cross that, but if I skip out on this week's work, it's not going to be as awesome as if I just push through. You've got to just push through.
Now, Amanda, how much sleep time do you get?
Sleep. So as a mom, sleep is one of those things I've been chasing for 6 years now. It's getting better, but I think the bare minimum I need 4 uninterrupted hours of sleep to not want to die. And then I need at least 3 more somewhere in the night to make up for, So I like to patchwork 7 hours of sleep together, but if I can get 6 uninterrupted hours of sleep, it's like amazing. It's not ideal. This is just like, as the mom runner, this is what you're looking at. But I think most athletes that don't have young children demanding them in the middle of the night, you can shoot for 7 to 8 hours. Maybe even something like 9, if you can. But I think 7 to 8 is ideal.
Okay. No.
I like to nap though, so I'm like the nap queen, and I will take a power nap like nobody's business, and just 20 minutes during the day, and I feel so much better. So that makes up, I think, for some of my nighttime sleep disruptions.
Right. Now, when it comes to training, do you train with the same person that is going to run with you in the marathon?
No, not for me, unfortunately. I live in a rural area, and I don't have anybody out here to run with me very regularly. I train by myself. So I have a treadmill that I use for speed work, and then I have country roads I run on by myself with my collie dog. But I got to tell you, it's dangerous out here. I have fallen before, but I still feel like I have enough usable vision to get away with it for now, because I live on very rural roads. There's not a lot of traffic. And I know these roads like the back of my hand. I've lived here for, decades. And and so I feel pretty comfortable just on this one particular route. I just do a lot of loops. It's just this loop I run. So I feel pretty good about that. Now, if I were going anywhere other than here, I wouldn't want to run without somebody.
Right.
So, But just right here in this like little 1.5 mile of road, I've got that one down. I feel okay doing that by myself. But if I go to a different route and I run with a run group, I run with somebody. But it's never anybody regular. I've never had the same guide for a race. So I'm always just. I would love to have a relationship with a guide where we did things regularly, but I just haven't been blessed with that yet.
Okay, but let me see if I understand correctly. When it came to the day of the Boston Marathon, you knew who was your guide or not?
I was introduced to her through a meeting on Zoom, and I had never met her before.
Wow.
So, we did get to run the Boston 5K the Saturday before the marathon, so I got to do a 5K race with her before we did the marathon together.
That's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was kind of like a shakeout run, but that's the only time we ran before we did the race. It was just like 2 days before the marathon. So,
Yeah. And were you scared about that, or frustrated about that, or anxious about that, saying, oh my God, I don't know this person?
I'm always a little anxious, because you don't know what to expect from them.
Right.
In so many ways. Yeah, you just have to trust, and that's it can be kind of scary. Yeah, it can be scary.
I bet. Yeah. Now, your training sessions, for how long they last?
I run 5 days a week. I break up my sessions between easy runs, speed work, and long run. I do one long run a week, and that can be anywhere from about an hour and a half to 3 hours of running, depending on where you are in the training cycle. Yesterday I ran 11 and a half miles. It took me about an hour and 40 minutes or so. And so that was on the shorter end of long run for me. And then the speed work can be anywhere from a 6 mile session to, 5 to 6 miles, where you do a couple of warm up miles. I do about 3 really fast miles and a couple of cool down miles. And that takes about an hour. So, maybe 7 to 8 hours a week of running.
Now, in terms of getting in the mood of things, so to speak, do you have music that triggers you and says, "Oh my God, I'm going for this one"?
Yes, I have a couple of playlists that are called Speed Day, and Race Pace. So I do have some inspirational playlists when I am going to do a hard speed workout, and I know I've got to just push it. I find that there's certain beats of music that help me stay on target pace. So I do have that for fun. And then I have, for long runs, pace isn't as much of an issue when you're training. During the race, you go all out, but during training, you hold back on your pace, so you go a lot slower on your long runs. And so for those like that, I sometimes listen to an audiobook. I'll listen to a podcast, or I'll listen to just a fun playlist with more relaxed music or whatever I'm in the mood for. But yeah, I love music. I wear the Shox headphones.
Oh.
So they're like the bone conduction headphones, so you can still hear the sounds around you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find those are great for me to be able to run and feel safe at the same time.
Okay, now, the mindset. Many people say if you're going to run, you need to be ready mentally. So I want to understand in your case, how do you work with your brain to help you out? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Your brain likes to tell you you're done before you actually are. So you have to just kind of tell yourself to shut up sometimes. You're like, no, you're not done yet. You're not done yet. And you come up with little things you say, like, I don't know, some people like the Finding Dory movie, or just keep swimming, it's just
right.
keep running, keep running.
Right.
Just, it can be that simple. If it's a really hard day, sometimes I count. And I know that sounds weird, but if I'm doing a speed work session and I've still got a quarter mile and I'm dying, I just start count to 100. And that, and then it kind of gets your mind off of, the clock ticking. It's weird. I don't know how to describe it, but counting helps get through. Sometimes I will visualize a past race where I had a moment I wished I could change it. I'll go back and just pretend I'm there and I'm changing it. And I just transport myself back. I'm I'm going to change how I ran that moment in this run right now. And it just kind of will motivate me to push through. Or I'll think about somebody who's having a really hard time, and I will think about them. And I'll just run for them. Like I said, somebody's having a critical medical condition, or their kid is sick, or somebody I know, that's suffering. I'll think about them, and that gets me out of myself, and I can just kind of push through that way too. There's a lot of mind tricks you can do, but those are some of the things I do.
Oh boy, I'm tired already. So many things go into this, Amanda, for our listeners, because. Yeah. It's a whole package of many things that you need to consider, Now, let's go to that night before the Boston Marathon. How was your night? How was your day before? Were you anxious? Were you happy? Were you excited? Were you nervous?
Yes.
Did you say, oh my God,
I'm telling you, every night before a marathon, I don't hardly sleep. So you make it a point, then 2 nights out from your marathon, you sleep. You make sure you prioritize sleep 2 nights out, because the night before your race, you're not going to sleep. You're going to, I don't know, at least for me, I get the jitters. I'm waking up. Like before I go to bed, I lay everything out I need in the morning. I have my outfit, my gels, like all my stuff is lined up, in one spot, and and you just sit there and think about it, and it's weird, that feeling of anticipation, because what you're going to do the next day is going to be hard. There are going to be moments that are going to go well and moments that aren't going to go well, and you have no idea what they're going to be. And you just try to let it go and hope for the best, and you're looking at the weather forecast, you're thinking about your outfit. Am I sure I really want to wear that shirt? Maybe I should wear this shirt. Is it going to be too cold for this? Is it going to be too hot for this? All those things. You can easily worry about it. The most important thing is that, eat that food, though. It's the meal before your marathon. It's the best. You eat a little earlier, like around 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock. You have kind of like an earlier dinner, and you eat the most amazing, as much food as you want. Don't hold back. Whatever you want, carb loading before the race is great. So that's always fun. And you're like, I'm going to have 2-3 desserts tonight. Who cares? Let's do this. So that helps get your mind off of it. But there's a whole lot of that. What's going to happen? Feelings. And then you can just feel in Boston, there are so many people there for the race. You can just feel the collective anxiety. Watching everybody is like, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just like, no, I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. But I think everybody that runs a marathon or who has run a marathon before knows that there's a point in that race where you are going to suffer a little. Like, it is going to hurt, and you know that, and you're like, why am I doing this? Why did I agree to do this again? Like, this is gonna hurt. But then again, you remember that feeling when you cross the finish line is unparalleled. Like, there's nothing like it on earth other than maybe having a baby that gives you that same feeling of accomplishment, where you're just like, I cannot believe I just did this. So you look forward to that too. But yeah, the night before is crazy, and the morning of, I think, is even worse than the night before, because that's when I'm just
what do you remember?
Palm sweating.
What time did you get up?
Usually 4 a.m.
So early?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, usually 4. Well, in Boston, I had to be in the hotel lobby at 5:15.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
Yeah, I know. And so I want to get dressed to make sure I have everything together. I'm not forgetting anything, that I feel comfortable in what I'm wearing, that I haven't forgotten anything. You really want to have time to go to the bathroom, okay?
Oh, yes.
So you want to make sure already had my food and tried to do that. And you've got to know your body, like, what's that cycle like? And so you really want to give yourself time for that, too.
Right.
Because that's another thing with runners. It's like a runner's nightmare. You do not want this problem on race day.
No.
So, yeah,
no.
you get up for that, too.
Right. Good point.
So, yeah, you're doing all of that. Checking to make sure everything's charged. Your watch is charged, your phone is charged. You got your sunglasses, your sunscreen, your tether, your bib, all this stuff. You're just doing the checklist over and over. But yeah, I had to be in the lobby at 5:15. We left the hotel on the buses at 5:45 to go rendezvous with the other buses in downtown Boston, which all departed around 6:45 to go to Hopkinton to the start line. So I didn't start the race until 10 a.m., but we had to be there at like 7:30.
Oh.
So, yeah, and so the way that I had my transportation to get there, that's why I had to get up so early. So, yeah.
Okay, so you get there, and what do you wear when it's time for the race? You talk about your watch. What do you are able to wear, to have with you when you're running?
Each race has different rules. Boston does not allow hydration vests, so you are not allowed to wear a vest, but you can carry a handheld water bottle. You're not allowed to have, like, selfie sticks and stuff like that. But I carried almost like a fanny pack around my hips. It's a runner's belt is what it's called, and I put my phone and my fuel, which are gel packs. I like to use gels. So I had all my gels, and I have my salt tablets, which I take. I had a handheld water bottle. Chewing gum. I like to chew gum when I run.
Oh.
I had that. I wear sunglasses. I have a sun visor. My tether. My bib number, of course. When I got there, it's cold before you start the race, so I had a hoodie that I was willing to donate if I wasn't going to run in it, but I wanted to wear it before the race because it was cold.
Right.
Sunscreen, you need to put that on.
Right.
But that's what I run in is just the belt with my gels, salt tabs, and gum, and my phone, and that's all I carried with me. And I had a handheld water bottle for the first 6 miles, and then it broke on me, so I ended up trashing that. But they have really good, hydration stations along the race route. So every mile you could get water or Gatorade or whatever. So.
Oh, okay.
So
Now, when it comes to eating, you talk about your gels. What? Excuse me, because I don't know what that means. I mean, is that for your hands or to eat?
Okay, yeah. So when you run long distance, you burn so many carbs from your body. Your glycogen stores eventually become depleted in your muscle tissue. So to combat that from happening too soon, you take carbohydrate gels.
Okay.
So it's basically just like a glucose syrup. It tastes a lot like strawberry jam. Strawberry. It tastes like you're just sucking down a packet of strawberry jam.
Okay.
And I do that about every 4 miles. So every 4 miles, I'll take a gel. And then a mile after my gel, I'll take a salt tablet to kind of combat the electrolyte loss.
Oh, okay. And you are able to drink a little water too.
Right. About, like I said, every mile I try to take a few sips of water or a Gatorade, some kind of hydration. Sometimes I'll do both. It depends on the weather. Like if it's hot and sunny and you're starting to feel hot, I make sure I up the hydration. If it's kind of cloudy and colder, I just stay to about, 3 to 5 sips about every mile usually is enough for me.
So we are at the beginning of the race. You're ready to go. How many people were in there?
So Boston has about 30,000 people running the marathon, and they break it up into waves, and each wave is broken up into corrals. So I was in wave 1, corral 8. And that's the very beginning of the race. They have the professional athletes in the very front. They start the race, and there's about, 180 professionals. So they start, and then the wheelchair athletes go next. And then they have the para-division athletes. So people like me, if I had raced para-division, it would have been right there to start. And then they have the time qualifying extremely fast runners that go. And then Corral 8 was what I was in, which was fast runners plus the Achilles athletes, adaptive athletes.
Oh, okay.
And so you're waiting at the start line for probably 15 minutes or so before it's your turn to go. They kind of they space the corrals out so that it's not a giant stampede. Which is nice.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'd say you probably start with a couple thousand people in your corrals. I mean, it's still quite a lot of people, but it's not like 10,000 people, So.
And when you are starting, do you feel nervous about it, or do you feel so excited that you are just so focused on it, you don't feel anything?
Oh, it's like everything. It's everything. Especially at Boston, it was such a moment for me. Like I had worked so hard to get there. It was just like years of training and dedication, and just pain and success. And just all this came to this one moment. And like they sing the national anthem and I cry.
Oh.
They have these jets do a flyover and I cry. Everybody is around you and we're like hugging and high-fiving and I'm crying. Like it was so emotional. I was just like, oh God, we need to start running before I need a tissue box. I'm going to. But I was glad I was wearing sunglasses because I was just like totally just crying for the whole waiting for the race to start. And then we start running and then just the people screaming for you and cheering for you. And I'm crying. I basically cried like the whole marathon, I think. I was so emotional. It would just hit me.
Because I suppose, Amanda, that listening to the crowd, being so happy with you all and cheering for you all, it must be a great energy boost, right?
It's incredible. Like Boston was like nothing I'd ever experienced. I'd run a couple other marathons, and you get crowd support, but Boston was something else. Like there were. So the interesting thing about Boston is it's held on Patriots Day, which is a state holiday in Massachusetts, and so a lot of people do not work on Marathon Monday. So there are plenty of spectators out there to cheer you on because people aren't having to go to work.
Right.
So there's even more spectator support, and I think that made a huge difference in the amount of turnout along the streets, along the race course. So that was interesting. But I mean, there are people with their little, setting up bands, playing music. They have their own, DJs out there for you, cowbells, little kids cheering for you and wanting to give you high fives.
Wow,
and
wow.
There's so much love Boston gives to the runners.
So much energy, right? It's
so much energy, and it was like you would be towards the end of the race when you start to really hit the wall and feel the hurt.
Yeah.
That's when what's interesting about Boston is that's when you hit the most crowd support. The further into the race you get, the more and more the crowds build, and it just keeps you going. Like you're riding on their enthusiasm, and it's just like, I can't walk in front of this many people. I'm gonna keep running.
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
It helps. It helps a lot.
Now, how was your relationship with your guide? Did you feel comfortable? How was that relationship like? Did you talk a lot with her? How was that?
For Boston, I felt pretty dialed in. I felt like everything was really good for me on that race. Yeah.
So,
although I think maybe an extra gel would have helped during the hills, and I think if I ever do Boston again, I'm going to pack an extra gel for the hills.
Okay.
At the end.
But with the guide that you were, right? That you were with,
Mm-hmm.
How was that relationship like? You were well connected. Did you feel that, everything worked well? You didn't feel...
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it turned out great, actually. And I think it was nice because we had that lag time at the tent before the race started. Because like I said, I got there at 7:30. So we got to hang out for about 2 hours before we had to move to the start line.
That's good.
And that gave us time to talk and process and just get excited and get to know each other a little bit more.
Right.
And also the 5K that I ran with her. I actually had two guides for Boston. I had a female who was tethered to me, and I also had a male guide who we called him crowd control, but he ran on one side of me as well, but we were not tethered. So I only had one tethered guide.
Okay.
But he would help us at the aid stations, get the water and make sure people knew that we were, tethered, because you don't want people running between us, me and my, tethered guide. Yeah. So he was there to help me with that. And that was the reason why I didn't race in the para division for Boston, because I'd never done a major before. I was a little bit nervous about it, just the volume of fast runners. I was pretty intimidated, so I thought having a second guide would make me less nervous, and so it was really nice to have him there. So we all ran really well together, and it was just fun. We had that camaraderie. We would joke. We would talk, just kind of vent about the course when it was getting tough, and they were fun, too, to call out signs that they would see along the route that would make you laugh, or just people in costumes, or there's a guy dressed up as Santa Claus. You're like, what? So, yeah.
And Amanda, what is the most difficult part of running so long? I mean, so many miles. Is it the breathing? Is it the mindset? Is it physical? What is it?
It's your body wants to give out before you really... for Boston, what happened to me there was, and I feel like each marathon has been a little bit of a different experience, but just speaking to Boston, what happened to me there, Boston is kind of a mean, nasty course, because at the beginning, it's a lot of downhill, and it seems sort of deceptively easy, and then around mile 16, 17, you hit this series of hills, and these hills just keep going and going and going, and so they go up until about mile 21. And what happens between mile 17 and 21 during the marathon is that's when you hit the glycogen depletion in your muscles, and that's when that happens to you, if you haven't fueled properly, you haven't hydrated properly, or you haven't trained just perfectly, this is when your body stops, and you can't do a thing about it. So when you've heard about people say you hit the wall, that's wall territory, and there's nothing but hills in Boston where you would hit the wall.
Wow.
Now, I didn't exactly hit a wall, but what happened to me was my quadricep muscle, so the front part of my thighs, they wanted to cramp. They wanted to cramp really badly, and I had no control over that, right? Otherwise, I felt fine. My heart felt fine, the breathing felt fine, my mind was in the game, I was ready to go, but my legs were rebelling against me, and I could not make it stop. And so I would kind of like walk, and I would try to do like kick my butt to stretch my quads to make them stop, and I kind of hobbled a little, exposed my pace. And that's what's frustrating sometimes. You just don't know what's going to happen. Like your body, you've trained, you've done all the work, and your body's just decided, like, we're not going to run anymore. You're like, no, yes, you are. So, and you just have to fight and push through it and decide, like, is it worth it or not? Is it safe or not? And that's, I think, something that comes with experience with running, like to know if this is a normal part of the race or if it's something that is scary and you should stop. And so for me, since it was just my quads and I knew it was hill related, I was like, this is safe. I'm going to keep pushing through it. But I knew I probably wasn't going to get my PR I was looking for because it had slowed me so much. So at that time, I kind of took some of the pressure off of wanting to push through it super hard, but I kept on moving through it. But it becomes a mind game. It really does at that point when your body starts doing stuff like that. You got it. You can't get scared. You can't fall into that. And you just gotta. That the crowd cheering, you're just like, these people are yelling at me. I can't walk in front of them. Like, let's keep going. Let's put up an effort. I know I look like I'm suffering because I am, but let's try to look strong. Like people are taking my picture. Get your head up,
Right.
Like I would tell myself, I did not work this hard to come here to quit. Just part of the game, and maybe this isn't what you wanted it to feel like at mile 18, but this is what you got, push through, so.
I suppose, Amanda, if you quit when you're running a marathon after so much, effort you have put into it, sacrifice, whatever you want to call it, that must be terrible, right? People who have to quit because they can't go on. They can't,
Yeah, there are some situations where it's medically impossible for you to finish, and it is devastating to a runner who has put in just months, if not years, of training to get, especially to Boston, because people work pretty much their lives to get there. It's such a hard race to qualify for and to get into. I'll tell you this: there was a guy who fell in Boston when I was running it, and I don't know if he broke his ankle, but he severely injured his ankle, and it was near the last 3 or 4 miles of the race, and it was near a nursing home, and there was an old lady out there, and she's like, wait, let me get my husband's walker. She went into the nursing home, got her husband's walker, and gave it to this guy, and he finished the race using this man's borrowed walker.
Wow.
He got through the finish line. He would not quit.
Wow.
Yes, so you will hear runners, so they will crawl across the finish line. It takes a lot to make somebody stop running a marathon.
Wow, wow, what a story. How nice, huh?
Yeah.
And Amanda, I wonder, have you considered going to Paralympics, doing, this as a more professional, if you wish, into doing something like that? Yeah.
I don't think honestly, I don't know if I'm good enough to do something like that. Now, I am not going to quit doing it, and I love being a runner, and I'd like to be a little more competitive with it, honestly. But being a mom is my number one job, and that is very time consuming. And
right.
I think if I were to go a little bit more next level with this, it would require a little bit of a different approach to training, a little more serious approach to training. I'd probably have to add a few more hours to my, to my hobby a week, and probably have some travel and other expenses like coaching and stuff like that I'd want to do to dial it in a little more.
Right.
But you see, I guess an amateur, I think I'm, kind of in the sweet spot right now as a mom and an amateur. But if I were, it would be fun. It's fun to think about. I could totally see loving doing something like that. But I think my compromise is going to be getting a personal training certification and getting back into the job market. I was a massage therapist for many years, and I want to renew my license, and then I think I want to incorporate personal training into that. And
wonderful.
Maybe compromise with something like that instead of trying to go more for me. Maybe put what I've learned to help other people, and that way I can kind of balance being a mom and still do what I love.
Amanda, try to tell our listeners, when you cross that finish line that day, what was the first thought that came to you?
Thank you, God. Honestly, it was just one of those moments where you just almost want to drop down on your knees and pray thank you. But you can't because you'll get stomped. But
I bet.
but I threw my arms up and was just so grateful. It was just you're just so humbled and grateful, and I'm grateful for my guides. I just feel nothing but gratitude in my heart. I feel gratitude for the experience, the people, the crowds, my guides, just everybody that got me to that start line and to that finish line, and just I don't know, your heart just gets so full of just all these feelings, but mostly I feel like gratitude is what hits me the most, and a little bit of relief because you can finally stop running.
Right, and you made it. You made it.
I did it. Yeah, you're just like, wow. And you feel, I think for me with Boston, it was just gratitude. I just was so humbled by all the people that had helped me get there, all the encouragement I've gotten over the years, and it was amazing.
Now, after that, what is coming next?
Well, I have signed up for a travel race with Achilles in October. I want to do a smaller marathon in St. Charles, Missouri, which is a flatter course, and I want to see if I can get a PR on that race. I want to try to beat my best marathon time in October.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah. Now, I did qualify for Boston again with my race in Boston, so I'm debating whether or not I want to go back for a rematch.
Oh,
see if I can't
rematch.
Get through those hills without all those leg cramps, because I got so close to a marathon PR in Boston. I had a really good race there. It's just those last 5 miles really killed me with the cramps.
Right.
But I almost want to try it again. I mean, it was just such a magical racing experience, like just the support of the town and the people and the organization. It was phenomenal, and I would not mind doing it again. So that's under consideration for next year too. I don't know, but then again, I also am like, well, maybe I should do another different marathon. Maybe I should look at Chicago or New York or another big city to check it out. But yeah, I usually do about 2 marathons a year. I feel like that's all I can manage with the kids. So a fall and a spring, and so yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Wow, that's powerful. I have to say, for our listeners, what a great experience to listen to you tell the story, how it's been. Do you feel, Amanda, that we don't do too much exercise in the blind community?
I think we could do more, and I think we could do better.
I think so.
Yeah. I think part of that is an accessibility issue. I think a lot of gyms are not welcoming. I think a lot of trainers don't know how to describe exercises to someone who is blind. And I think there, I can see that there is a trend in more availability for good audio description videos on the internet, but I think there's room for a lot more to just help people understand how to do these movements so that they can go into a gym and do a class with other people and have that confidence.
It's funny what you say, because I have a friend in New Jersey. She was telling me the other day, she went to a gym and there was this trainer, but the trainer was scared to deal with her.
Uh-huh.
So she was telling me, this guy is so scared, he doesn't want to touch me, but he has to, because he has to show me.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know how to handle that, and he said, you know what, I gotta go. And so there's no one to help her out in that gym, because other trainers say the same. Oh, how do I help this blind person? I don't know how to get around this,
That is really frustrating. I think I was really lucky because when I started my fitness journey, I lived in San Diego, and San Diego has Challenged Athletes Foundation. They have a lot of wounded warriors there. They have a lot of people in the fitness community who are experienced with disabled athletes, not just blind athletes, but any kind of disability. And I took actually the CrossFit gym I went to had an adaptive athlete CrossFit class that I went to. And I know that not everybody has this, but I had the wonderful privilege of working with these people, and I saw you can adapt every single exercise in a CrossFit class to someone with a disability, no matter what it is. no matter what it is. And having seen that in practice, I know it's just an area where education is lacking in other trainers. They just don't know that this is there. So the lady who coached that class is a physical therapist, and she does teach seminars for other, fitness professionals to teach them how to work with adaptive athletes. And there just needs to be more of that. She's the only person I know that does it. So I just feel like, if I were to do the personal training stuff, that would be part of my outreach, would be to just educate and teach how to adapt. And I like working with older clients too, because I feel like, geriatric fitness is very much neglected as well. And, how do you scale a workout so that somebody who is, frail can still do it. So I just think fitness should be accessible to everyone, and it's not. And I think a lot of it's just education and a lack of creativity. You just got to think creatively. And I think, as blind people, we're really good at that. That's how we live our lives. As very creative people, problem solvers, But if you don't know how to do fitness, you can't solve that problem because you don't even know what you're doing yet.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
Yeah. But,
Amanda, do you have any idol in the running community that you say, I like this person, how well runs and how much she has done for the running community? I don't know. Any idol, any person you look up to?
For runners, I'm just going to have to give credit to my friend Terry, because she's done it for me, getting me out there and getting inspired to learn how to run, and just the doors she's opened to me with other athletes. I wouldn't have known about anybody else if it weren't for her. So
right.
I know she's not famous yet, but maybe she will be. But, she's a mom, and a blind mom that runs and did all the things I wanted to do and helped me get to, where I'm at.
Right.
So she's one of my idols, and I should probably laugh at me for saying that, but I think just the people on the ground that are out there doing the hard work, like my friend, the physical therapist I mentioned, who's teaching these classes and working with adaptive athletes. Those are the people I admire, the people that are out there trying to make change for all adaptive athletes.
That's a good point, Amanda. And for people listening right now, I say we gotta stop watching so much TV, my dear friends, and we gotta move. We gotta move, my friends, because time flies. We are not getting any younger, and we need to plan for the future. And there are some people, Amanda, who say, okay, I don't know if I'm going to run, but at least I'm going to walk. But I need to do something to be healthy. It's not about 5K, 20K, blah, 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 whatever. It's about I need to be in a better shape to deal with what is coming in the future. Because let's face it, when you are 70, 80, 90, you better be in a better shape than others. So it's important to start thinking about your health, and exercising is critical. Everybody says that. Doctors say that. And Amanda says that, you are 46.
Yeah, I call it nursing home prevention.
Yeah, you're right about that. And you can run for so many decades. There are people that run when they are 80 or whatever, but because they have experience and they have been doing that for many decades. So it's...
Yeah, I think the oldest person that ran Boston was 83.
There you go. Mm-hmm. And so right now you are 46, correct?
45, almost 46.
45.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a long way to go. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, so it's very important. And when it comes to safety, Amanda, if you can please say it again to our listeners, it's safe, right? To run a marathon as a blind person is safe. You have people like you have your guide people and everything. So don't be worried about it, right?
Well, I think fear is part of it, but you need to learn that you're going to be okay. Like, that's just, you can overcome that. There's always a risk to running. You're always at risk of falling. You're always at risk of injury, but I have never been seriously hurt running, and I've been running for many years now. So I think as blind people, we are no strangers to falling and running into stuff. So it's no worse than just daily life, I'd say, honestly.
Right.
I think with a sighted guide, it really does, especially if you're able to build a good relationship with someone. When you have that trust for them, it becomes much, I think, less scary.
Right.
When you can have a good relationship with a guide.
Right.
I think, too, though, if you do want to get into marathon running, I will say it's not a bad idea to see your primary care physician and make sure you don't have any underlying health conditions with your heart.
Good point.
Because I do know some people can have stuff like that going on and they don't know about it. And they'll have weird symptoms that they'll overlook, and then they can have, an episode, which is unfortunate. So,
yes.
I'd say if you do want to get into distance running and you've never been cleared by a doctor or a cardiologist, you might want to do that. I did that. I've been cleared just for peace of mind, because I think with distance running, it's just a different ball game. It's just a whole lot more stress on your body, but worth getting checked out. But
right.
once you know that, then you don't have anything to be afraid of, right? You're like, okay, I'm good to go. Let's do this.
Right. All right, Amanda. So before I let you go, what would be your final thoughts, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn about running?
Oh, man. Achilles International is a great way to find a running community if you live in a city that has a chapter. You can do a Google search for that. And there's also United in Stride, which is a network of blind and sighted. And it's a way to find somebody to pair with you through a zip code search. So even if you're traveling, you can find a sighted guide somewhere. That's how I run, and that's a lot of fun. So those are ways to get connected to people in your area or your local running store. Stop in your local running store, ask about local run groups, and just say, hey, I'm a blind runner. I'm interested in running. Do you have somebody in your run group who would want to be a sighted guide for me? So that's another way you can get involved.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you, how they can reach out to you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Amanda Vaughn Bonham on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, too, but I can't for the life of me remember what my handle is.
Okay. Well, Amanda, it's been a privilege to have you on. I know how busy you are, a mother, a wife, a runner. I mean, it's a lot. So
yes, I am busy.
It's been great, Amanda. Thank you so much for your inspiration and for never giving up. It's a great inspiration for everybody.
It's my pleasure, and I hope I inspired somebody out there to just give it a try. Start small, and you never know, the running bug might bite you like it bit me.
I'm sure it will. Thank you, Amanda.
Yes.
And for our listeners, remember always to smile. Not too much TV. Not too much TV. We got to move. So this is Alvaro from All Abilities Network Podcast saying, if you want to be on the show, email me at allabilitiesnet@gmail.com. This is Alvaro saying good night.